Thank you very much for so many people joining. A fantastic turnout. Also, just for the people standing at the back, we do have a repeat of this tomorrow in case you want a seat. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to stand. Today, we're going to be talking about a few different things. Our title, unfortunately, is slightly misleading around implementation methodology. We are focusing on the tools and the technology to support an implementation methodology. This isn't a lecture in methodology. But what we want to talk through is, first of all, a methodology that we use within the solution architecture team that's very successful. And then we're going to go through actually the flow of one of our workshops, which is the implementation lifecycle workshop, which actually goes through deploying an environment, configuring it, using LCS, data packages, process data packages, and we're going to do it all very quickly in the space of an hour for you. The main reason we wanted to do it is to really give you context of, there's a lot of deep dives and a lot of breakouts on very specific topics this week. What we wanted to do is give you that 10,000-foot view, basically, of these are how all those tools are actually supposed to work together throughout the life cycle of an implementation. So my name's Clay Wesner. I'm a member of the Dynamics R&D team on the Solution Architecture Group.
My name is Paul Wu. I'm also part of the Solution Architecture team.
Paul's far more technical than I am. So today, as we go through, I'll focus on more the functional consultant type aspects of the implementation. Paul will take the technical consultant developer aspects of the implementation.
The geeky part of it, as Clay calls it.
Nerd Town is actually what I refer to it as.
I go crazy in Nerd Town.
Yeah. So implementation methodology. So this is sort of where I'm trying to set the context of what we'll be talking about. You may have noticed, has anyone deployed a new LCS project since Friday?
We got
Why not?
We got one hand.
One guy had, don't laugh, okay. Oh, it said two guys, see, two people have done it. I've done heaps. So you would have noticed the methodology's changed a little bit. It's become less about a methodology in the sense of Agile or Waterfall or Scrum or whatever you might use. And it's really focusing on the tools and the things that we require from a technical implementation or from LCS or from AX through that phase. And that's a deliberate sort of focus to allow the partners and specific implementations to really choose and excel in the methodology that suits them and their business and their project, rather than us trying to define that in the technology. So you will notice our methodology, we still call it a methodology because that's what it's always been called, but it will become far more focused on key tasks. Paul will also show you today what our new customer project experience looks like in LCS. Was that shown at Keynote this morning?
I'm not quite sure.
Well, we'll show it to you anyway.
Yes.
But basically, there's now sort of a partner-led experience, which is the LCS that you're used to. And then there's a customer-led experience, which is what we're referring to internally as a hardened methodology. And so it doesn't have all the Agile, Scrum, and all those different things. It's much more about, before you sign off on your analysis, regardless of the methodology that you're using, these are the things from an AX project perspective that we need signed off on. Okay? So it's a little bit of a cultural shift for us internally. And that's why I sort of said today what we want to go through is really the tools that we're investing in to support an implementation lifecycle, regardless of the methodology that you are using. Okay? So we are trying to build our tools, with the BPM, our VSO integration, everything that we're developing, we are really trying to support. If you are an Agile-based organization, Scrum, Waterfall, it really doesn't matter. The tools will still be applicable and useful for you. That said, now I'll talk about a specific type of methodology. So we, the solution architecture team, get directly involved with some of our clients, with a lot of clients actually, and we do have some implementations that we lead. For those, we've been leveraging more and more a conference room pilot methodology. So it's far more iterative. It's more about driving results immediately and from day one, and verifying sort of elements of the solution in incremental loads as we move forward. This has been extremely successful for us. We've had a lot of projects that have gone far smoother for us than using a traditional waterfall. And This is one of the things that we keep in mind as we're going through and validating and signing off on our new tools. This is definitely a methodology that we continue to focus on. I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but basically, as I said, it's more about focusing in conference room pilots, engaging the client early, and focusing the first conference room pilot on a completely standard deployment, no customizations, validating where standard works and where it doesn't, and then moving into an iterative conference room pilot cycle after that for customizations as we go. Now, this, as I'm saying, I gave you the proviso, this won't work for everyone. This may not work for your business. This is something that we've adopted and we're working with. If you attend the implementation workshop, that is a newly introduced AX7 workshop. The first one is this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Unfortunately, it's full, but we are opening dates up in Europe, and very soon we'll be putting more dates in Asia. We actually go through a mock implementation in that workshop. And we do use CRP methodology within that workshop. So we actually go through, you deploy environments, you configure them, and we go through and do a showcase, actually, and you deploy customizations and that sort of fun stuff. The reason for the session today we wanted to introduce with this methodology is a lot of the things that CRP requires is environments being able to be spun up very easily, quickly, configured. Lots of things that AX historically hasn't been great at. And that's where a lot of our investment in the tool set has been going. So the things and the tools that we're going to sort of show you today, we think they align really well and support a CRP methodology really well, but they're there to sort of work with the methodology that you want to work with. So if you attended how many attended the preview tech conference last November? It's the same guy that did the LCS project. Okay, so this is a little bit of what's there today. I'm also going to give you a little bit of a roadmap hint here as things we're introducing. But this is really how we see LCS and VSO supporting an implementation through the different phases. Now, you'll notice up there we've got Microsoft partners and LCS solutions. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking through today, while they are there as implementation tools that you can use for a specific project, at the same time, LCS Solutions is built to wrap all these things up and make them repeatable, put you on the Azure Marketplace if you want to as well. So they mentioned this morning, I think we've got 48 solutions already deployed to the Azure Marketplace, and that was built using the tools we're going to talk about today and published through an LCS solution. So what that allows you to do is all these nice things that are there to make an implementation easier, we've also got a method to bundle them all up and actually put them on a marketplace, make them repeatable, let customers use them for trials, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to start with the bottom side and go into LCS. So this is really where we're driving a lot of our work now. BPM has been around for a long time. We're making improvements for it at the moment. I just spoke to our PM in that area. And now that we've RTW'd and we've released, some of our engineers are coming back to work on BPM improvements. So you'll see some changes coming into that in the future. Usage profiles, Paul's going to talk through today as well, so you can sort of see how they've changed from 2012 to AX7. The next then is around upgrade assessments and subscription estimator. Again, Paul's going to talk about that tied into the usage profile. These are LCS-based tools. They've been around for a long time, but we are changing them to update to AX7. So what you will notice now is within LCS, there's quite a lot of difference now as if you create a project as a 2012 project versus 7 project, a lot of these tools will be different depending on the one you go into. Today, everything we're going to be looking at is on 7, okay? So it's all on the new tool set that we've released. Now, in Visual Studio Team Services, yes, or VSO, as I'll probably refer to it now for the rest of the session, what we then start looking at is how we can manage the other elements of an implementation. So what we do a very good job at the moment is lots of development artifacts and bugs and upgrade work items. What we're looking to improve in, and this is where I say we're getting a bit roadmappy, is then managing the other aspects and leveraging some of the tools within Visual Studio to manage a Scrum or an Agile implementation. So right now, this is functionality available within Visual Studio. You can go in and create work items within Visual Studio. What we're working on at the moment is we're actually going to have an integration between LCS and Visual Studio to push these records for you automatically between the two applications. So when you create business processes within BPM, they'll actually be available to you within Visual Studio so that you can link development items to them and things like that. So while now this is more a technically you can do it in these applications, what we're moving to in the future is actually automating that integration. So what's going to come out soon is we're actually going to have configuration within LCS. So you can say, this LCS artifact, maybe it's a bug or a dev item, I want it to become this work item type in Visual Studio. And we'll actually do that integration in the background. So we're building those APIs at the moment. The next flow on is then, depending how hardcore you are, a lot of our partners are already doing this, but then leveraging VSTS to start managing change requests, FDDs, TDDs, all their documentation and their different development artifacts in the background. Then we start getting into some of the more technical functionality of LCS, and this is what we're going to be demoing a lot today and taking you through. The first is around managing the data down at the bottom there. So we've got new concepts of, how many people have heard about data entities this week? Yeah, there we go. On top of that, we've now got data packages and process data packages, which is a way to work with and consume our data entities. So we're going to take you through that today. Then, as I said, the technical stuff they don't let me talk about, so this is where Paul has to jump in.
Oh, yeah. Right now?
Yeah,
okay,
there you go. See, we've practiced our segues, so they're really smooth. You didn't even notice it.
No. So yeah, like Clay was saying, once you get your FDD and TDD sign off, you're moving into your design phase and coding phase. X7 has a really, really beautiful application lifecycle management story, which we'll dive into. We go from the start, from the moment you deploy your dev and test environment, be able to have a build machine, do your daily builds, run a gated check-in. Actually, we have a session focused specifically on that topic. I believe it's sometime Wednesday. It's run by one of our colleague, Joris. So if you're super interested in application lifecycle management and getting all the details of it, I super recommend you guys to go to his session. But today we're just going to show you, again, the 10,000-foot overview of exactly what we offer as part of the ALM, the application lifecycle management bits and pieces. Yeah. Do we have more?
We do. We've got then. So there's a couple of parts there. You notice the little blue box at the top talking about requirements traceability. So this is something we're prototyping internally at the moment. As I mentioned, while putting business processes and requirements is optional in Visual Studio at the moment, we're looking at automating that integration. One of the main reasons we want to be able to do that is so that we have traceability of a requirement throughout the entire life cycle of the project, so that we can actually see at a higher level, at a partner level, at a customer level, how many bugs are signed off, how many gaps have development work items associated with them, how many of those development work items have been completed. So trying to remove some of the manual labor. We know a lot of partners have invested in things like SharePoint, in TFS process templates, lots of these different things. Absolutely, those can continue. We're not saying that they're not going to be an option anymore, but what we want to have is an out-of-the-box option in that. The last part there, which is then fun, and we'll talk about at the end of this session as well, is then really how we support an implementation once it's deployed. Yeah, if you want to take photos, it's now finished. I've stopped clicking. No, joking. It's the last one. So then we actually talk about monitoring how we've got an application. So support, we've got some cool new features in support, so you can actually log support tickets directly from the application, have them flow into LCS, into Visual Studio, and then actually out to Microsoft as well. We capture a huge amount of telemetry and monitoring data as we go through now. So we'll have a little bit of a look at that today. You can see what users are going through and what they're actually grabbing. Issue search is still there. Hopefully people have used issue search on 2012 projects, as you can actually go through, search our internal databases, see what bugs and fixes are available. It's absolutely still there in the future. And we're going to go through and demo and show this. The last bit I want to highlight there at the bottom is around project insights. So this is part of this Visual Studio integration work we're doing. And we're looking to build reporting within LCS and also within Power BI to give that traceability and visibility across a requirement to a bug, to burn downs, to what development items are related to fit gap, all that sort of fun stuff that would happen on a project. have out-of-the-box reports that you can consume. Hi. To what? To LCS or to VS?
Repeat the question, Clay.
Oh, sorry. Well, I don't want to repeat the question. No. So So the question was Microsoft Project integration to LCS. So it's been talked about. The focus initially is Visual Studio, not with MS Project. I know we're focusing on things like BPM improvements first, the Visual Studio integration. What we have done and shown in a previous session is once we're in Visual Studio already has integration with MS Project, and it makes it far easier to work with. So I don't know the definitive answer, but I would suspect that would probably be the path rather than a net new integration with LCS. If you give me your details after the session, I can get you a real answer. Better than that. Okay, so what we're going to do today, like I said, is show you through the tools really in the background that support this, the different phases of the implementation. As I said, some of this is still work in progress. A lot of this is net new for AX7, and it's important to understand how it all fits together. Even we've found as we've been learning about AX7 as things have been developed, there's a lot of new functionality, and working out when it's applicable and what it can be used for is often the most challenging thing. Today, we're going to be very quick, so we'll give you some context. Hopefully some things slot together for you and make more sense of detailed sessions you're going to sit in. But at the same time, like I said, if the topic interests you a great deal as well, like I said, we have a dedicated 3-day workshop now where you actually hands-on go through this whole life cycle. So, deploying an environment.
Yep, so we're just going to go. That transition was pretty smooth.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through just a quick demo and walkthrough of deploying an environment. So just a show of hands, how many of you have actually gone to LCS and deploy AX7 environment?
No, today. No, joking.
Okay, that's pretty good. So if you have done that, you will be familiar. This screen will look very familiar to you, right? So you go in, here's your project. You have a methodology, right? Before you were using LCS curation, whatever methodology you have. Right now we have the current methodology you're seeing is the new methodology we have. It's called the implementation. And then you have the environment tab where you would actually go and create an environment, right? So this would be considered as a partner-led experience in the sense that the partner, say I'm a partner company and I own my Azure subscription. I pay directly to Microsoft Azure, right? So this particular project is linked to my subscription, partner subscription, right? So if I deploy an environment here, the environment is actually deployed into my subscription, not to be confused with Microsoft's own subscription, right? So let's just take a quick look at what type of environments we can deploy right here in the partner project. So essentially, I would use so you ask, so what would I use this project for? How many partners in the room has worked on a LCS solution? Yeah, so wow. That's exactly where you would go to create your LCS solution, right? So you go ahead and you say, I'm going to deploy an environment in Azure. I have two options. Demo, one box, pretty straightforward. I think most of you have seen it. Dev and test, basically, we give you a build machine together with n number of developer machines. So we pick the development one, and then you'll see we automatically give you one build machine, and you have the option of picking multiple developer machine. And as you guys probably know, as soon as you created the LCS project, we ask you to set up Visual Studio, VSTS, team services settings, right? And what that does behind the scene is it gets a token. I'm going to go nerdy now. It gets a token from ESTS, so which allows LCS to be able to check in code, create work items, create bugs in VSTS. That's where that entire nice LLM flows, right? Not only we can use the same Visual Studio's VSTS account to check in code, but we also, if you log a support ticket, if you log a bug, they also get automatically flow into the same account. So one portal, you can manage all application lifecycle management related topics. So when we actually deploy an environment, we automatically hook your build machine over here to that VSO account. So say this is the very first time you come here and create this project. We'll go to your VSTS project. We'll create the source code tree structure with the main metadata folder, the project folder where you can store your project. If you actually check in code, we actually sync that code into VSTS, and then the build machine will build, the nightly build automatically kicks off, right? And then if you deploy it, later on we're going to show you how you will be able to take a task recording, import it as a test. As long as you have the keyword test in your model, the build machine will be able to automatically pick it up and run the test as part of your nightly build, right? So that's a fantastic experience. We're going to show you a quick demo of that later on. So that's the basic dev and test topology. So that should be pretty familiar with you guys, similar to you guys, since you guys have done this before. So now let me switch to the newer experience, which is the customer-led experience. Over here, you can see similar methodology, the implementation methodology. We've done a couple of nice things here. Is you have to basically check each one of these tasks, and we have a nice action center here on the left-hand side to show you exactly what's missing. And before you can move on to the next phase, you have to complete a phase for a task that's locked. You can see in order to unlock the task, what prerequisite task you have to do. You ask, how is this related to deploying an environment, right? So as you can notice, there's 3 types of environments here on the right-hand side. It says production, sandbox, standard acceptance test sandbox, and dev and test sandbox. So remember, let's rewind back. How did customer end up in this project? So that's where the new experience is coming from. So if I'm a partner, right, the customer will reach out to me to say, I would like you to be my reseller for Dynamics X. If I'm a partner, I would create a customer inside my reseller portal, and then I'll work with my customer to see how many users the customer actually needs. And then I'll add those users into the subscription. Yes, question? Yep, so the question is, what's the minimum number of enterprise users is required for RTW? The number is 50. So you have to have at least 50 enterprise level users to be able to add to a subscription. And the reason for that is for our cost recovery. So when you when you purchase those users for a customer subscription, what LCS does behind the scenes is we'll create one of these implementation projects for a given customer. So there would be a one-to-one relationship between a customer and the implementation project. And as part of the fee you pay to Microsoft, the subscription fee, you get 3 environments for free, right? The production environment, obviously. That'll be sized based on the initial subscription sizing that you did with your partner. You get 1 sandbox for your UAT, and you get another sandbox for dev and test. Those 3 environments you get for free not really free, you paid for it, but you get it with your subscription. If you know the right people, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so that would be the main difference, where that new experience is coming in. But due to the time constraint, if you want to know exactly how that entire flow goes, me and another colleague of mine, will have another session. It's called Customer Onboarding right after this session. It's happening in 6/11. We'll get into this whole experience in details. Hand it back to you, Clay.
OK, so what we're going to do to start with is we're going to have a look at BPM, which should hopefully be not new to most people. We're going to have a quick look in BPM, and then we're going to jump in and have a look at task guides. So we've been demoing task guides a lot over the last 4 years, but we've had them demoed a few times. I'm going to go through that nice and quickly just to sort of re-show the experience to people. Main reason we're showing it today is because it's going to flow into then some of the more detailed implementation scenarios that we're going to get into a little bit later. So it's important for us to cover off. So if you can flick over to 6, please. And I will... I have that constant look of surprise on my face all the time. Okay, so today we're using a new project created. We are using RTW when you have a look in the environments that we're demoing. And what we're going to go through is, like I said, start with BPM and task guides. So if you haven't used business process libraries before, there are standard ones available, the APQC, and we have a getting started one as well, which is like an intro to AX. Now, in the past, this was just a big, long list of processes. What you'll notice now with AX7 is this actually has task guides associated to it as well. So by selecting this library with your BPM, AX actually is aware of what business process library you selected. So now when you're in the AX7 client, it knows what your business processes are. And there's lots of things we use that for within AX. But one of the things we also use is if you create training guides within task recordings, they actually get saved back onto the BPM library. So then you can move this library onto other projects or other environments. As a partner, what it also allows you to do is if you've got additional processes that are specific to your ISV or your solution, what you can do is add those processes into your BPM library, have task recordings associated with them, and actually publish them to all your client projects. So while we have a standard set of documentation that comes out in the BPM, we also have then a set that you can use. Now, in 2012, again, BPM was nice. In 7, we're using it a lot more. So you're going to notice we're going to come back and reference this a lot. Task guides, process data packages, everything uses the BPM as sort of its focal point. So really getting it right and making sure it reflects the customer's process is important. As I mentioned today, we are now just embarking again on more improvements to BPM. So we're adding things like multi-decisional paths, importing from Excel, a whole bunch of other things to make BPM a lot nicer for you to work with. We know it's got some usability challenges. So there is work going in to make it a lot more easier to work with now that you have to use it so much more. So I'm using the standard process library here. So I've got, for example, market and sell products and services, and then a whole bunch of specific processes within that underneath. And if I scroll down there, there should be one even around invoicing, managing sales orders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into AX now. And now that I've selected this as my BPM library, you'll see how it actually reflects within the application. So this is RTW build if you hadn't seen it. You should have seen it this morning, I would have hoped. But if you used to CTB8, you'll notice we've slightly changed the icons and the menu has changed a little bit. As Dan was talking about, we made a few UX changes recently based on feedback we were getting from the early adopters. Now, task guide, very, very cool. Once you sort of start using it, you realize the different applications that it can be used for. What we're going to do is we're going to come in here and say create recording. And I'm going to create a free text invoice. Okay? And I won't put a description. I'm just going to click start. Now, what this does is it'll go record all the steps that I do and build it into a AX task recording. Now, I'm going to go through the step first of all, just so you can actually see what I do to record it. But you'll notice as I navigate, it will actually start recording over the left-hand side here. I'm not going to teach how to do a free text invoice here, so I'm not going to explain what I'm doing. I'm just going to go through nice and quickly. Now it's income, isn't it? That's right. And there we go. And post. So there's a task recording of a simple process. So like I said, we now have out-of-the-box ones of these. So that's done, and I can stop my task recording. So we have ones that are standard published as the BPM library now. We have partners developing additional ones as part of their LCS solutions. And then also we have the option now customers and partners can build them as part of their implementation. Now, once you've done it, you've got a few options. You can save it to your PC, so it'll just give you a downloaded file of AXTR format, which you can then move around and send. Save to Lifecycle Services. So what this will actually do now is bring back my BPM library and allow me to choose a node on that specific BPM library that this process relates to. And by doing this save, what it's going to do is a couple of things. A, it's going to save the task recording for me so other people can access it. It'll now be accessible to other people as a task guide within the AX client. It's also going to update my actual business flow diagram within BPM with the process and the AX security roles that I just ran through, okay? So what used to be a few-step process in a couple of different tools in 2012, we do that as one step now, and you save it directly from the client. So I can come in here and say, this is to do with this. I can never remember. There we go, and we just click OK. And we save that into the library. It'll create the business flow diagram. It'll keep a version of the task guide and all that sort of fun stuff. You can do export to Word document. So this is like the old task recorder where we used to get a whole list of steps come out. Personally, what I found is I prefer to have it within the application. It's far easier to work with. And the last one, which we're going to do as well, is save as a developer recording. This actually saves this out as an XML file. And I'm not going to steal Paul's thunder, but it's cool.
It's okay.
Okay, I'll steal it. But basically what we can then is actually generate an automated test case based on that task recording. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file, and Paul's actually going to use this in a second when we go through into Visual Studio, and we're going to create an automated test based on that recording, okay? So from an implementation perspective, I suppose a lot of the tools that have been optional in the past, you'll notice that there's going to be a far more suggested / mandatory nature about them in the future. And it is because they are so much interconnected at the moment that if you're not using BPM, you know what I mean, you're going to not be able to link your task guides to it. If you're not using task guides, you won't be able to use the automated testing functionality. So it really does rely on you starting your implementation from day one, leveraging the correct tools. Otherwise, leverage the correct tools so you save yourself work down the path. Also, as I mentioned earlier, it's where we're investing, so these tools are only going to get stronger and richer. So what I'm going to do now is, just for the people that haven't seen it, I am going to actually show you how this works as a guide. So I'm just going to open back up from my PC as the easiest one. And just don't look at what's in my download folder. And I can open that task guide. So what this actually lets me do now is it gives me a guided experience through the application. So it says, go to customer invoicing. And then what you'll notice is it'll actually point me around the screen now and guide me of where I need to go to follow that. So I've created effectively a training guide, something that can assist with testing processes and something that can flow into a development artifact and actually help with automated testing as well. And at the same time, I've generated my business process flow diagram in BPM. Okay? So we've tried to bring a lot of technology we had in the past into a far easier process for you to manage. Support multi-language. So there's a better answer than I'm going to be able to give on that. I know there's been work done on it. I'm just going to have to, do you know the answer to that question?
I'm pretty sure there's a session on Task Recorder.
Sorry.
I have an answer, but I don't want to give you a half-baked answer.
We can give you a half-baked answer, but not a full one. Sorry about that. But if it's not there at the moment, I definitely know it's something we're doing, but I know there's been a change recently on languages. Hi. Yes, you can. So what you can do is once you've actually done this, so I can change recording text. So if I want to change all the descriptions and put notes in and explanations, and also I can do update recording steps. So if I open this one back up again, what I can do is load this back up, and then I can actually go play the next step. So it'll open that, and I could actually add in another step. I could add in a developer placeholder, or my favorite thing is you can actually just sit here and let it do it for you and just watch it. No hands. And actually have it run through. And this is the information that it's storing in the background to actually be able to run the automated tests in the background. But if you wanted to, you could come in here, add an extra step, expand on it, do whatever you need to. So they're maintainable as you move forward. Yeah. Correct. So the question is how can you create it in a way that it doesn't create data or it doesn't roll back? Yes, when you create the task guide, there's a way to create it as, I can't remember the term we use, but roll back or something along those lines that doesn't commit the data as it goes through. So if you want to do it purely as a training exercise, you can run it through as a training exercise and it won't commit that data to the database. That's why I was being vague, because I didn't know.
Well, the purpose of the session is to pique your interest, so you can look up those sessions. I think
it's there.
It's a well job
Literally,
done.
it's there. Yeah.
We piqued your interest. But seriously, though, we have a lot more content.
We
don't
do,
wanna
and
get
we're running
stuck
behind.
in-
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry. So to cover off on that, so BPM and task guides, the point there is from an implementation perspective, analysis from day one, we're trying to drive a far heavier usage and adoption of task guides and BPM. The next flow of that is sort of as you kick off an implementation, you've got your business process, you start doing your task guides, you've got a standard environment up, a demo environment up and running, you're running task guides of standard processes. You then need to start thinking about your production infrastructure and other requirements.
All right, so that's where the infrastructure sizing guy comes in, right? So how many of you guys are infrastructure guy? All right, so have you done infrastructure estimation in 2012 in LCS? All right, great. So you guys are familiar with creating a usage profile, your transaction characteristics, analyze the whole Christian Wolf talk, right? Yes. Are you familiar with that Excel sheet you used to work with? Is it very easy to work with? No. I hear yes, no. Yeah. Unfortunately, right now, it's still there. That's the bad news. But the good news is you end up with 4 numbers, right? Number of enterprise users, number of task users, number of self-service users, number of total transactions. And that 4th one is the tricky one. That takes a little while. And it's like an art and a science in order to come up with a pretty accurate number to see how we eventually size your production environment, right? It's definitely an iterative process. You're not going to get there right away, right? And you need to, the reason why I ask who's done infrastructure estimating is this is not just a pure technical job, right? You need to involve functional users, business users, and see if the user tells you, yeah, we need to process 30,000 sales orders a day. Do you need to process it in midday where everybody's online? Or is this something you can process during off-peak hours, right? Those things, infrastructure guy would not know. You need to involve everybody in the project to kind of have that first look at how we're going to size and how we're going to create our usage profile. So, like I was telling you guys, number 8. Thank you. Our Excel friend is still there. It looks pretty similar. If you have used it before, you would have been very familiar with this, and you answer pretty much the same set of questions. How many instances you have, what countries you're doing, how many legal entities you have, how many users you have. After you're done with this screen, so first of all, where do you get this Excel sheet, right? We would go back to our project, and then in the analysis phase, you would have one of the steps to complete is the subscription estimation step. But then you ask, wait, if I'm on this screen, I would have already purchased. My customer would have purchased the subscription with a certain number of users and number of transactions. Then why is this here again, right? So actually, you do your initial estimation during a pre-sale stage, right? We actually have a pre-sale methodology for you to walk through the business processes, walk through the usage profile, create those 4 numbers, right? And that's some numbers you can start with. And then over here, you can start refining that number through user testing, through load testing. But if we do actually go into that tool, subscription estimator, it's very simple. You just go create a new estimate. You would have gotten the 4 numbers from that usage profile. You put those 4 numbers in there, you're done. And we will size like number of LSs, number of BIs, what tier of SQL you should be on behind the scene. We have a magic formula that does that. It's like the Coke formula. We put it in a vault.
But again, just piquing your interest, we're not allowed to talk about it.
Yes. And then the way you would download that Excel file is you have a link over here, which unfortunately, I don't think it's working right now. But it will work. And then if you want to get to that Excel file, you just go to Subscription Estimator, click download, you'll get access to the Excel file. Then you will work with your customers and your functional architects to come up with the magic number to put in here. So that's usage profile and subscription estimator in a nutshell. quick question. Yes.
What happens if the initial estimation is different?
So the question is, what happens if the initial, so the estimation that you've done in your pre-sale project is, let's say, significantly more? Yeah. Yeah. I can give you again. I can give you. So if you want to know more about how licensing and pricing works, look for Juan, Juan. He's doing a session specifically on pricing and licensing. Yeah. Yes. Go ahead.
For ISV solutions, what are the guidelines to pick up enterprise users, or functional users, or worker users? So what happens is sometimes ISV can put in everything into the functional users, but if you're estimating your resources based on enterprise users or functional users, you may miss that formula. What are the guidelines for ISVs to put in what users are enterprise users?
Yep.
What computing required should make it enterprise users?
Yep. So just have the timing in mind. The quick answer I'll give you is these four concepts, they're actually not new. They're exactly the same type of concept back in 2012. They're defined exactly the same way, right? So enterprise user is the one that you give a person that could do everything, right? If you're running a consulting company, the consultant needs to log time, needs to log expenses. Those would be self-service type of users, right? And then you put those numbers down into the Excel sheet, right? That will help you to how do you derive from what functional users do to a number of transactions at the end. At the end of the day, the number of transactions is what determines how many LSS servers and sizing and all that you need. But there's another session that some performance. I mean, that's seriously, that's why we run this session, is to give you guys information and have that 10,000-foot overview. Christian is running at least 2 performance-related sessions, and that's a very good topic to bring over there. That's the estimation part.
It's me now.
All right.
Okay, so you've got a sandbox environment up. You've done your estimations. Paul's happy. You've set up a BPM library. You now need to start working with some configuration data. So we've introduced a few new concepts in 7. People should have been familiar with DIXF and data entities back in 2012. Obviously, we've restructured a lot of that and improved how data entities work. From an implementation perspective, some of the really handy things we've introduced are data packages, which are groupings of data entities so that you don't need to work with the individual 800 data entities. And then process data packages, which allow you to relate data packages back to business processes to help you guide you through a configuration experience. Okay? So I'm going to step through each level of it now and try and give you some context on how you build them and also how you consume them as well. Thank you. See, we're getting far smoother now. By our session tomorrow, we're going to have this down.
Oh, yeah.
So what I'm going to start with is having a look at data packages. So a data package, you build them within AX. They're a zip file, and they basically contain lots of different Excel files for each of the different data entities. And they contain some XML to sort of explain what sequence they should be imported in and all that sort of stuff in the background so that AX knows how to interpret that package. So if I have a look in AX, I'm just going to go into data management and show you one that I've got. So this is a data project for sales and marketing data. So you can see all these different individual entities of setup and configuration data within the background. So each of these has mappings between the Excel file and the table within AX, the data entity within AX. But what happens is this all wraps up and gets downloaded as a single zip file in the background. Okay? And what we can do is we can use this for a couple of things. A, you can use this purely to move definitions of entities and structure and relationships between your environments. But at the same time, we can import these data packages into LCS to help guide a configuration experience. So let's say, for example, you as a partner have a set of standard configuration that you use on every single project. You can export that, group it together in a data package, and then use that in LCS and actually just get LCS to deploy that data package to an environment for you. You don't even have to log into the environment to deploy it. It will deploy it for you. The next level of that is then process data packages, where we try and actually make it like a nice configuration experience for the user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into LCS and show you where we store the data packages in the LCS solution asset library. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the asset library from the methodology and show you the data packages that we've got. So I've built some sample ones. So you can see here I've got 10 that go through an initial setup, a system setup, global address book, GL, products, AR, AP, inventory, procurement, and sales and management. Hi. Versioning?
Yeah. When I update the data later,
Yes?
is a version number coming up?
I don't know the answer to that question on versioning. So at the moment, the way we typically manage them is you update, you have a global library, an organization library, and a personal. If you don't update them with version details, you do overwrite the one that's on there. So you have a current version of it on LCS. We don't maintain like SharePoint, like a version history of the data packages that are online. If you publish it to your project, use it. The only thing I would say to that is we do have the scope levels. So for example, you can have an organizational scope of a data package. You can add it to a project, and then you get a copy to maintain for that particular project, and your master configuration is then maintained in the background.
Yeah.
That's probably the closest we've got to managing multiple versions of it. So each of these has been imported. They created in AX and brought them in. And so in the background, they all have a list of entities that are associated with them, and mine then actually contain data for an environment as well. Now what I can do is I can now, if I really wanted to, I can just go into AX and one by one import these as data packages. I don't have to do anything fancy. I can just import them one after another and get them in. Paul's going to talk about more of a configuration management scenario. What I want to talk about first is if you were going through a brand new implementation, how you can relate this back to a business process. So what we can do is this is where we've got a concept of process data packages. So process data package, we actually have standard ones that we release as well. So you don't even have to build them if you don't want to, but you can. And what they are is, so I've got one here called core configuration. If you've created an LCS project in the last few days and you want to go have a look, you can click import and you will actually see these new global ones. And this has core setup data similar to our Contoso data set that you can import into a blank environment and get an environment up and running. But the idea here is that for core configuration, I'm going to go in and show you how I built this. So what I've done is gone through, I've got a BPM library, so I'm using the same one, the APQC, and then I choose which data packages I want to include. So I can go through and say these are all the different data packages that are going to relate to this particular piece of configuration. Add any dependencies, so logical dependencies between the data can be added. And then the last step is you actually associate it back to a business process. So you say, okay, this sales and marketing data is required if they're going to use the sales order process within BPM. So then we have a relationship not only between the process and the task guide, but then we also know this is the setup required to support a particular process. Now, as I said, we've done standard ones of these by we, Microsoft. Partners have defined their own, and they're part of LCS solutions. Partners also have the option to build this as part of their sort of implementation toolkit that they'll be managing. But what this is really for is managing that first implementation. Now, once I've done this, I build it once. Then what I get to do is actually consume it. So the scenario here, you can have a couple. So you may be brand new client, brand new blank environment, and you want to set it up from scratch. And you want to go through a guided experience of how you actually do that. The second scenario might be, let's say you're a large organization and you go through multiple acquisitions, or you're going over a multi-year rollout of multiple legal entities. So you need a way to onboard entity by entity and allow them to approve their configuration as they go through before they're brought on. Process data package can support both of those scenarios very nicely. Now, the third scenario, if you've got identical configuration that's moving between environments regularly, something that's methods of payments that's the exact same for every single company, process data package is going to seem very convoluted to you, and you're going to wonder why you have to go through so many steps. That's where Configuration Manager comes in, and we'll talk about that one in a second. This is really about that onboarding experience and getting an environment set up where you want someone, you're not just moving data around, you're actually interacting with it and trying to understand it. So what we do is I'm going to open up consume data packages. And what this is actually going to do is this is going to take me through, and I can now say, okay, I want to deploy this package to a particular environment. So I can say this is going to be configure for tech conference. I can pick the process data package that I want. So I might, for example, have one for core config. I might have one for new legal entity. I might have one for adding a particular module of scope, depending on what processes and what data packages are going to be included. And then I can say which environment I'm going to publish it to. So it'll bring up the environments that I have within my project, and I can click create. So what this will do is this creates a new configuration package, and then I can go into that. And this will now guide me through a few steps. The first is reviewing and approving my business processes. So as a business user, I can come in, make sure I'm happy with the business process, sign off on them. So again, remember, this isn't managing configuration once you're live. This is trying to get you through the implementation process. So as an example, I can come here and say, all of the sales and marketing stuff, I've been through every one, I've looked at all the task guides, I'm happy with it. So I can sign off on that. So it'll mark it off, it'll keep a record that I've signed it off and approved those processes. Next, what it'll allow me to do is then actually go through process by process and see the associated configuration related to that. So you can see here it says that there's dependent packages and they haven't been started, so I can review and approve. So what it'll do is it'll bring every package that relates to that particular process, and then you can see in that package there's actually a whole bunch of entities, okay? But I only care about the one. And what I can do now is download this in Excel, make changes to the data, add configuration, add new records, remove, tailor it to the specific legal entity that I'm configuring at that particular time, and then upload it back up into that same spot. So this is really an implementation consultant leading a customer through a configuration for the first time, but you have that base set of data and processes in the background. Once you've done that and you're happy, you click approve and you move on to the next one. So then the idea is that you'll go through multiple iterations, build up your processes, and what this will do is then you'll effectively complete your configuration within LCS. Once it's done, you'll then have a set of approved data packages sitting within LCS that can be applied to an environment. And what this allows you to do is actually then say, okay, apply that data package. We've already had the request, by the way, for an apply all button before anyone asks it. So that's on the way. But what that'll allow you to do is you can then come in and say, okay, I'm configuring Contoso Entertainment Systems, and apply. It'll connect to that AX environment in the background. It'll load the data package. It'll load all the 200 Excel entities that are in the background, create a data job, and push them into that environment for you and do the configuration. Hi. Yes. So all I know is that that's a known issue. How and when it's going to be resolved, I don't have a timeline on, but I know it's something we're aware of. Good. On Connect, that's the first step. So the idea here is, like I said, this isn't moving between multiple environments. This isn't expected if you're trying to add one record to multiple companies and push it out. This is really about that first-time experience. The other thing that this is being used for is our LCS solutions. So if you have an ISV solution, you can build your set of processes, the related data packages, and load it up in LCS for it to be managed through. The next part of this is then more that day-to-day management of configuration, which is Configuration Manager.
Okay. I know we have DIXF, we have Configuration Manager, now we have PDP. So I'm just going to talk very quickly the architectural layering of these three, right? DIXF sits at the bottom. It's X7, native to X7. Configuration Manager sits in LCS, but it uses DIXF. And PDP sits on the top, and it uses Configuration Manager. Okay? So if we're talking about business process, PDP, because I'm saying, if I equate this scenario in X7 to a scenario in 2012, would be, what do I have to go into X to manually set up in order to demo order to cash to my customer? For that, PDP. Great. So what I use Configuration Manager for is, okay, I just need to set up an environment. I want to dump in a whole bunch of configuration data in there. I don't care about what business process I'm enabling because I know that data is good. Configuration Manager. Okay? So as far as experience is concerned, here's your Configuration Manager. You have a tile right here in your LCS project. If you use Configuration Manager in 2012, it's pretty similar experience. I notice all the data packages Clay has created and approved automatically shows up here under Configuration Manager. I notice there's no association with a package to a business process. It's just raw list of packages, data packages ready to be loaded to an environment. And notice I don't have upload or download button over here. Reason being, well, because this is already pre-baked. Anything that shows up here means it's already being approved by all your functional and technical users. So I just simply come over here, pick a data package I want to apply, hit the apply button. Very similar experience. It knows what environment I have in my LCS project. I'll pick my RTW. Then it'll iterate through what legal entities I have. I'll pick a legal entity. I'll hit apply. Then that's underneath the hood. It does nothing but calls a whole bunch of DIXF APIs to get the data package imported into X. And over here, if you click the history button over here, it'll essentially lead you back to, you can actually drill from Configuration Manager directly into X7. So to answer your question about if something went wrong, how do I kind of debug? I know the experience is not ideal because the reason why we have this Configuration Manager is targeted towards a business user. So if you tell the business user, say, if an error goes wrong, you have to actually go into the X7 and dig into staging tables and all that. It's not ideal. We're aware of that. But you do have the capability of drilling through from Configuration Manager into X and see exactly what job went wrong and what was the error. Yep, so that's Configuration Manager.
It's you again.
All right, love it. So just very quickly, if we've talked about initial estimation, sizing, we talk about BPM, how we do fit gap, how we flow the BPM, how we do task recording, how we flow task recording into test. So I've done all my analysis and design. I'm ready to code, right? Now I deploy a dev and test environment. So what does that environment look like? So I have a build machine, right? Remember when I talk about when you deploy a dev and test machine, it actually automatically, oh, sorry.
Do you want to be demoing?
8, please, yes.
Right. I can see it. It looks good.
Remember, it actually automatically deploy a build machine, and then we'll link that build machine to your VSO, right? So let's assume I've already checked in code into my VSO. What would VSTS, what would that project look like, right? So if I go to code, it'll show me a nice branch structure. This would be your main branch. Feel free to create other branches right next to it if that's what your process desires. And then obviously we'll have your metadata folder, which you map to your package root folder, and then you can start develop. This would be the package, new packages that you are creating. The build machine, whatever you check into VSTS, the build machine will automatically pick it up and do a nightly build. That's where the nice ALM flow comes in, right? So I can show you guys. So imagine you have deployed a build and test environment, dev and test environment. You say you have 3 developers in-house. You have deployed 3 dev machines. All dev machine is connected to the same VSO account, VSTS account, together along with the build machine. It's pointing to the same VSTS project, right? So the build machine will do a nightly build. Your developers are checking in code. So if you go to the build tab, it's a really nice way for a project manager to come in to see exactly the health of your implementation, right? So if somebody breaks the build, you will be able to backtrack into exactly what checking break the build. And there's actually would take advantage of all the nice capabilities in VSTS, things like gated checking, right? So when a developer submit a change, you can say, no one can submit a change unless the change has been through a gated checking. A gated checking means we'll spin up a build or run a whole bunch of tests. If a test fails, that checking fails, right? That entire thing is automated. How beautiful is that, right? I just get excited when I talk about that.
As do I.
Yes. So I've actually queued a build yesterday. So let's just double click into that. You'll get a nice dashboard experience to see how long it took to build, what you actually built. So what I'm actually going to show you is the testing experience. So I took the test recording Clay has given me just now. I go to Dynamics X, I go to Adding, and I say Import Test Recording. Okay, so that's the experience. I know back in 2012, a lot of the partners and customers complains it's so hard and it's so costly to have tests, right? Is there a way for you to guys give us a nice way to have automated tests, implement automated tests? Well, this is a very cost-efficient way to have a set of gated tests in place for your implementation. So I just import the test recording. Clay gave me an XML file. It's called create FTI, free text invoice. I'll import that in. The result of the import would be this project file right here. I have a test. If I build it, I can open up my Test Explorer. The Test Explorer will automatically discover the test case, and I can right-click and run the selected test. And this very test is the same test that the build machine will pick up and run a nightly test on. So if I go to my VSTS, if I go to my test tile, if I go to my runs, again, you have a nice dashboard experience to see, oh yeah, for this build, I have 50 tests, and they all passed. Or one test failed, and I can backtrace to see exactly why this test failed, and go down and hunt down the developer who checked in a code that breaks it. So that's at very, very high level, that's what the LM story is about. There's a session dedicated to this entire experience. The guy who's giving the sessions, his name is Joris. He used to be an MVP, but last year he joined the ASA team. So if you are interested in LM-related topics, I highly recommend to go to his session. His name is Joris, Joris. Okay, next one, because we're really running short on time. We will answer your questions when we finish this, because we have a whole bunch of stuff to run through. Skip. Go ahead. That was the demo I just did.
Oh, it's me again. Okay. Again, well-oiled machine. So what we're going to do is very, very quickly, I'm going to do this in a few minutes just to give time then to actually answer some questions, is really this last part around changes we've made in cloud-powered support. Issue search is still very much the same, the monitoring and the diagnostics, and also our integration back into Visual Studio for support. Okay. So this is a few different things. We are leveraging task recordings in this functionality as well. But what it really is about is, A, making the support experience a little bit nicer for end users, giving partners a way to manage support through LCS, which was something that got requested multiple times. And then also leveraging Visual Studio to manage our support ticket process in the background. So, can you flick over to me, please? Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I'm going to go into AX. And this time I'm going to go up to my little help icon. So if you haven't seen the help menu yet, it does things like load task guides, it loads content from our wiki. It's context sensitive to where you are in the application, so it'll find wiki pages and task guides related to what you're looking at the moment. So I'm on the home page, so it's got lots of generic things, but if you are in a specific form, when we actually write our wiki content and our task guide content, we put basically the form names and the metadata of everything that it relates to, so the user gets a far more contextual experience as they're going through. But what they can also do now is go contact your support team. And what this will actually allow them to do is raise a ticket. This doesn't come to us. This goes to the LCS project and then can go to us. So it's not just for MS support tickets, it's for any type of support incident that you've got. I have a problem. A big problem. So I can do some basic things. Is it causing a work stoppage? Is it going to cause other people a work stoppage? I can upload a task recording. So if I keep hitting an error, I can actually just go task recorder, start, record my error, and then attach it to my support case. So as it comes through to the person investigating, you're not then writing out a Word document of repro steps. They can actually just look at the task guide and see exactly what you hit. In the same way as then when you're hitting Microsoft support, we can look at that task guide and actually see what you went through. Yes, it does have a limit of 4 megabytes, correct. Yeah. In that respect, you'll have to log it, attach it afterwards, something along those lines. We have to put the limit in somewhere. So, last point is you have to consent to your email address being shared. This is one of our privacy requirements. The end user actually needs to select that, and we click submit. So what this does is it's going to give me, the end user, a ticket number. It's going to create it in Visual Studio for us. It'll be visible in LCS, in Visual Studio, and it gives you a few other nice options as well. So once this goes through, so it's ticket number 5. My system hasn't had a lot of problems, obviously. That's this real-world example. So now the cloud-powered support, which what you used to experience in 2012, where it would have like your support tickets that had only been logged with Microsoft and allow you to spin up repro VMs, this has been repurposed now if you're on an AX7 project, and it will actually show you all those support tickets that's been raised within your organization. You can do a couple of things. So you can see, for example, what your active incidents are. It pulls this list through from Visual Studio. You can create new incidents here. You can submit them to Microsoft. You can launch into issue search and pull data from the ticket that you've just raised. Or you can actually click them, and this will take you into your Visual Studio account now and actually see the work item. So we're leveraging Visual Studio if you want to assign this to a support rep, move it into other people. Specify the area. It may become a bug and need development work to happen on it. You can start managing that through Visual Studio. One of the other very nice things I'm going to do while I still have time is you'll also notice is it pumps through a whole bunch of data from the person that logged it. So we get their session ID, what environment they were logged into, what version of the browser they were using. A lot of the things that we then come back and ask you typically when you log a support ticket, we're capturing that. Also, it gives us a link directly into log searching. So I can click this now. It takes me straight into the environment monitoring that user was using. It also pre-filters it to the time frame that user was using the environment. Okay? So I can now see, so Clay and Paul were in, they were using the environment. SQL seems fine. The AOS doesn't seem like it's conking out. They were doing some DMF work, they were transferring data, and I can actually jump in here and start seeing in a little more detail, okay, well, what was Clay doing, what was he clicking on, and what was he running? So you can start getting a little bit more data in the background and start leveraging some of the telemetry that we're capturing to see, well, really, what did they do? They actually went into another form that they didn't tell us about in the support incident and help you a little bit more in investigations. This environment monitoring is also available just from LCS environments. Paul showed you before how to deploy an environment. As an administrator, you can go in and review this data for an environment anyway. For our TAP customers, for example, we go in and monitor it regularly to make sure everything's running. We can see if there's been an AOS crash, if people are getting errors, if forms are timing out. We can start capturing that sort of stuff in telemetry. But specifically from a support and investigation perspective, it really helps identify, A, was what that user telling you correct? Was anything else going on? You might see at the same time that person logged a ticket, we had a whole bunch of AOS crashes or something like that going on the background that may relate to their issue. Rather than you contacting an IT person that then is going to go to that machine and check event logs to try and work out the time, you're sort of getting it one click. Obviously, we're doing a lot of work in this area as well, so the telemetry experience will change slightly in the information that we present, making it far more understandable for people to read, also making sure we're complying with all the privacy requirements and all that sort of fun stuff in the background. The other part is there you would have noticed is that there was a submit to Microsoft option on the incident. So this can log straight through to our dedicated support team as well that monitor the live and the production environments. So again, if there's something going on in the background without the Azure infrastructure or something along those lines, the support contact from our side that gets the ticket assigned to them already gets all your telemetry data, the activity IDs in the background, and those types of things. Hi. Yes. So you can talk about that?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So there's a lot of intelligence that's actually been built into how we group logins together. The platform underneath this is called Geneva. It's a platform on top of which all Azure cloud services is built on. So we do fuzzy matching and a whole bunch of stuff. We can get into the details of this again. We have CAN queries like display, show me all the slow running queries, or show me the top errors. And the way we say, how do you categorize as top query, right? So if you have an error message that says free text failed for customer foo and free text failed for customer bar, it'll get grouped into the same type of errors and then presented to you as a top error. So there's a lot of intelligence that's been built into it. And a good thing about building a technology on an existing Azure technology is as they evolve, this experience will evolve as well. Yeah.
So we originally intended for there to be like 20 minutes for questions. There's 3. And I'm going to take another minute, so there'll be 2. So the idea of this workshop was really to take you through it was rushed, I appreciate that, and obviously not to the level of detail everyone wanted, but really to give you that flow view of the tool sets available now in LCS and AX to support an implementation. The idea here is there's a lot of sessions this week on individual topics that will delve down and spend an hour talking about just one of these boxes that are currently on the screens. So definitely go and get into the deep dive sessions if it interests you. The other thing I would say is we do have the implementation workshop. If you look on DLP workshops, you'll see the timing available for it. Like I said, the one this week is already sold out, but we will be running it again in Europe and in Asia shortly. This spends 3 days and actually takes you hands-on with every single one of these tools, and you go through an experience, so it's far more interactive. So, with a whopping 2 minutes and 38 seconds, if anyone has any questions, we have some time still. If you could use the microphone, that would be super helpful.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
The first of which, the contact support that you showed, is there any way you could have it to the on-premise IT scene?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So is there any way you could have the contact support go to your on-premise IT team?
I know they've got that in their backlog to integrate with other support systems, but right now it'll go to Visual Studio.
And in addition to that, can you add custom help? I know you have your wiki, but let's say you have your own custom product form, whatever.
Yep. So right now you can add custom task guides, save them into the BPM, and they'll be visible. I know, again, it's on the plan to then have like partner or customer-based wikis that'll present in the same way. Okay? Okay, we might wrap it up there, guys. If you've got any... Oh, sorry.
So for
Sorry, I'm going to actually ask you to just come up the front. It's going to be a little bit louder. Guys, if you've got questions, you can come up and see us. But sorry, we do have to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you.